Welcome to our webinar, Structure Meets Agility, Smarter Project Control with PRINCE2 Agile version 2. My name is Sean Low, and I'm a senior consultant with MindMagine, and I'll be your host for today's session. We are thrilled to have you join us. Over the next hour or so, we'll be exploring how you can get the best of both worlds in your projects, the robust governance of PRINCE2, and the flexibility of agile methods. Before we get started, just a couple of things to help you through today's session. If you notice on the top bar here, there is a Q&A button, right? And if you do have any questions, please feel free to click on the Q&A button and we will actually capture your questions. Some of the questions will be answered during near the end of the session, the end of the presentation, I mean. And then if we are not able to answer some of the questions, we will then reply or come out with a FAQ to actually then provide those answers, right? Some questions will not be answered immediately because we want to keep the flow of the presentation, and we will answer it at the end of the webinar. So this webinar is also being recorded, and we will send out the link to the recording at the end of this session as well, right? So today, together with me, is my co-host from PeopleCert. His name is Imran Ahmad. Imran is the Senior Advisor for Agile and Scrum with PeopleCert, with extensive experience in both PRINCE2 and Agile methodologies. He's been at the forefront of helping organizations adopt and adapt to this hybrid approach. So we welcome Imran to this session, who will be sharing more throughout this presentation. Okay, so let's begin. Let's quickly talk about the need for Agile. Imran, if you, yes, thank you, Imran. Why is Agile important, especially in project management today? I know traditionally the old ways of how we handle projects have been very effective, but unfortunately, just applying the overly structured, unflexible way of project management is no longer beneficial because of a few reasons, and these are the reasons that are listed here. Number one, there are rapid technology advances. For example, for big data and AI, which requires a lot more flexibility in how we actually deliver its capabilities. And in projects for big data and AI, we need to actually take a more iterative approach, because carrying out activities through just one flow is not going to help us capture the real benefits or the real value from those. Number two, there's a huge acceleration in market and geopolitical shifts. Organizations are asking for flexibility in managing the changes that is happening so rapidly, right? Unfortunately, as you look around the world today, there are so many changes, some good, some bad, right? We hear of wars, we hear of the need to be more connected to deliver more value quicker. So the need of Agile allows for that, right? And helps actually deliver those outcomes. Number three, user needs are fast changing, right? I remember in the 1980s, 1990s, right? The user needs are normally, they provide you with a need and then it takes another 5 years before they change the needs. But today, because of the competitiveness of the environment, user needs are also rapidly changing. There are shorter development cycles we have to go through rather than long phases. Nowadays, development cycles are expected to be maybe as short as 1 week, right? So we need to be able to manage that as well so that we can deliver parts of the value early on. And because of these changes, there is an increased risk due to the lack of time in analysis and planning. That's why the application of Agile into our project management allows us to actually reprioritize, refocus on what is valuable, and deliver that early on to the customers so that they can benefit early and provide the necessary feedback so that we can also deliver the right values as we go along in the projects. So we see a very strong need for Agile today. And this need is also seen in projects as well. So projects do not escape from it. So let's move on to the next slide. So because of these rapid changes, because of these things that are being being very disruptive, right? It actually creates something called the VUCA, right? VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Volatility means that the environment is not going to stay the same, right, for long periods of time, right? So the environment will change. Our strategies will have to change. In this case, to resolve this, we need to have a clear vision of what we want to achieve in our projects and what are goals we want to achieve, and then allow the agility to enable us to achieve the vision. Second thing we need to address is uncertainty. Uncertainty is the lack of predictability. Like I said earlier on, the user's needs are changing. We do not know what the user needs tomorrow, And by using Agile in our projects, allow us to be flexible to then adjust even the requirements to meet the needs while delivering on the overall vision of the project. The third thing we need to address in Agile is complexity. Complexity means that things are not as clear or understood, right? We need to actually have more clarity. And by applying Agile, where we encourage constant communication, we can reduce complexity to be more assured of what needs to be delivered. And finally, we need to address VUCA with Agile in terms of the ambiguity. Ambiguity means that the lack of understanding and it's the lack of ability to interpret the current situation. So applying Agile allows us to adapt. For example, tomorrow the situation were to change, we can easily adapt, right? We can easily adapt while the strategy changes, but and still achieving the vision. So Agile plays a very important role in addressing the VUCA challenges and applying Agile into our project management, especially in PRINCE2, allow us to still maintain a structure of good project management while allowing us with the flexibility of delivering value. I'm now going to pass on to Imran to help us understand further how this can be achieved. Over to you, Imran.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so as Sean already said, Agile is becoming increasingly important and it's here to stay. That's also something that we noticed in the PRINCE2 environment. And building on that, we basically did a overhaul of PRINCE2 Agile, and the version 2 is going to be very exciting. I will tell you more about it a little bit later, but first let's shed some light on the terminology. So we've been saying and hearing the word agile, but what does it actually mean? Agile is a very broad term. You can understand it in many different ways, but what it encompasses is various frameworks, behaviors, and techniques that emphasize the values that Sean has already explained. We need adaptability, flexibility, we need to be able to collaborate, focus on the customer, and all of those practices and techniques, but also mindset is incorporated in the term agile. And agile originally emerged as an alternative to the waterfall approach that we all know. Agile organizations, they benefit from driving user engagement and continuous learning. Early delivery allows teams to incorporate feedback, ensuring iterations align with evolving needs. Regular reprioritization enables quick responses to change, keeping projects adaptive and user-focused. So specifically addressing all these VUCA issues we have established earlier. So when there is no specific definition of the word agile or agility, how would we define it? In PRINCE2 Agile, we like to go by this definition because there is no standard definition. This saying, agility is the ability to embrace and respond to change by pivoting and adapting a previously set course. We find like this short description embodies what Agile means. And as you can see also in the illustration below, Agile is not just a specific framework. It's not just a set of practices. It is two things. It is basically doing Agile and being Agile. Doing Agile meaning doing all the practices, working in iterations, collaborating with customers, and so on and so on. So these are things that are quite easy to grasp, but on their own, they're not effective. That's why you also need the being Agile part of things. Being Agile meaning it's a different mindset, a different culture that you also need to establish. And there is some change sometimes that comes with it if those values were not previously established. So we emphasize on the importance of not just doing Agile, but also being Agile. Many fail with Agile adoption by simply focusing on doing Agile. They are constrained by the lack of understanding at higher levels and not empowered to be adaptive. So doing Agile is obviously not a bad thing. Those are the practices that you need to follow after all, but they work best when also combined with a cultural change, with the being Agile part of things. Because true agility needs both. You need a specific set of practices, but you also need to be constantly adapting and enabling your teams to respond to change effectively. While I did say there is no standard term definition of the word agile, there is one that is quite popular and basically meant to be the basis of agile. And that's the Agile Manifesto. The Agile Manifesto coined the term agile, and it was created in 2001 by some software practitioners that had a summit and basically decided that this is how they want to work going forward. And as you can see, they looked at how they work and they defined some values. So the Agile Manifesto prioritizes interactions over processes, software over documentation, collaboration over contracts, and change over strict plans. When you look at Scrum, for example, which is a very popular Agile framework, it enables teams to tackle complex problems through iterative development. So the Agile Manifesto basically says not the things on the right, the processes and documentation and so on, they are not obsolete. We are not going to do them anymore, but what we want is them to be less relevant for how we work. So they still have the right to exist, of course, but the values on the left, we just value them more. Let me explain the doing and being Agile part because it might be a bit confusing with a little picture. Let's have a look at this Agile onion. The Agile onion is a metaphor and it's commonly used to show we call them layers of Agile understanding. So you have the two inner layers, which are the doing Agile part, and they can be adopted anyway, even in a command and control style organization. And they are visible through actions. So you will be seeing a lot of wall charts and sticky notes and dashboards and rituals and people having stand-up meetings and all these kind of things. But on their own, they are not as effective. For them to be as effective as possible, you also need the three outer layers, the being Agile part. They require organizational change and they require change in how people think and act. And only when we have the Agile mindset, we can talk about really full cultural shift towards learning, innovation, and adaptability. So what's your takeaway? How can you take the word agile with you? Maybe you can use our acronym CREATE. As I said, there is no standard definition. The Agile Manifesto has 4 values. The Scrum and Kanban, they have their own values. So what we really like is this CREATE metaphor. And CREATE is 6 key characteristics that drive agility, which include collaboration, respect, empowerment, adaptability, transparency, and exploration. So Agile sounds good, right? But then again, we are maybe in a context where we do need to care about governance and everything. Maybe we're not a small tech startup that can just start working at the Agile way. This is where PRINCE2 Agile comes into play because it integrates both governance without sacrificing flexibility. So instead of applying PRINCE2 project management and Agile separately or in parallel, it blends them seamlessly. So those directing and managing must adopt the Agile mindset, and the Agile teams must also align with the governance and control defined. Now that we have the vocabulary right, let's have a look at PRINCE2 Agile. What is it? Especially what can you expect from version 2? Because if you might already be familiar with version 1, there are a few significant changes, a few things that are still the same, but I will get into that. So if you've never heard of it, what is PRINCE2 Agile? So PRINCE2 Agile provides guidance on how to adopt Agile ways of working, and of course the mindset and everything, in both projects, but also non-project environments. So it can be used to help you apply Agile in any given situation, and it offers practical guidance in the form of examples and templates also. PRINCE2 Agile pushes beyond traditional project management boundaries, exploring how PRINCE2 project management principles can be applied to non-project environments, enhancing transparency, governance, and control. This approach bridges the gap between project delivery and operations or business as usual, bringing together best of both worlds to create a cohesive, agile-driven framework. That's just a very short summary of what PRINCE2 Agile is. If you are already familiar with PRINCE2 Agile version 1, there are a few things that you will recognize in the new version as well, namely being the PRINCE2 project management principles. They are still very much connected with Agile. We also have the PRINCE2 project management practices that can provide guidance, but also with a focus on Agile ways of working. We also have the topic of PRINCE2 project management and Agile being blended, and we also still have a process-driven approach. But we wouldn't be releasing an update if there weren't any updates. So there are a few improvements that we worked on, namely these. So there is more guidance for applying PRINCE2 Agile in various contexts. So the topic of Agile tailoring has a lot more improvements now. We've also simplified the language. I know, especially if you've never interacted with the Agile world before, then there are a lot of terms and words that mean gibberish sometimes. So we have simplified the language here, making it more accessible. There is a stronger alignment with PRINCE2 project management and the rest of the PRINCE2 portfolio, of course. So we are in sync with the updates while still maintaining the agility that we want from PRINCE2 Agile. And we have included some modern Agile practices. So up-to-date trends like scaling frameworks, OKRs is all in there. And then, of course, we have also added a lot of new things, which are these namely. So the whole topic of Agile integration has been expanded. So Agile practices extend across all project domains, not just software projects and not just software or projects, also not just project delivery. We also incorporate the Agile ways of working or Agile mindset into the overall governance. Namely in the form of people and mindset focus. We have increased emphasis on collaboration, adaptability, and Agile values. Agile leadership. So as I just said, what does Agile mean for not just the people delivering the project, but also being a lead in some form, be it within the team or outside of the team. And also performance tracking. So how do we track the value of delivery, team health, outcome alignment, and so on and so on. So yeah, that's just a very, very short summary of what PRINCE2 Agile version 2 is about. Now let's have a look at why it's good, at some details. So as I said before, what we are trying to do is we're trying to reap the benefits of both. We want the Agile mindset, Agile ways of working, Agile delivery, but also we want the overall project management governance that we know and love from PRINCE2 project management, right? And this is exactly what you will find in PRINCE2 Agile. So PRINCE2 project management is a flexible method that is suitable for any project, right? We know this, it is well established, and it works across different industries, geographies, adapting to local regulations and cultures. Because it basically what we do there is we don't prescribe exact steps, but we use principles that teams can tailor to meet their project-specific needs while still ensuring consistency and control. And these exact principles are also found in PRINCE2 Agile. For example, you can achieve business justification with an MVP landing page that tests interest early. And if users do not engage, then you don't need to do the full development. It's not justified, right? You are lacking the business justification. Learning from experience, another PRINCE2 project management principle. We do retrospectives all the time in Agile. And it can be, for example, that a retrospective reveals something like the length of the iteration not being a perfect fit for the team or something similar. Focusing on products, you can, if let's say you have a conference payment system you want to establish, there are some tools in PRINCE2 Agile that help you with prioritization and with focus. For example, the Moscow matrix, which I will show you later, that can be very handy here. And of course, managed by exception is also a big topic in PRINCE2 Agile. We address it by, let's say you have a prototype that must be demo ready at some point. The project manager can have some flexibility in scope while keeping zero tolerance on the delivery date. So as you can see, the principles from PRINCE2 project management were always ready to be used in an agile environment, and PRINCE2 Agile basically puts this in your hands, right? So you can apply them into an agile environment. Yes, so the project context in PRINCE2 Agile to different environments is very important. So we have these 5 integrated elements of PRINCE2 project management, and they work as a unified system. And these practices support the consistent application of principles throughout the processes, ensuring that they are tailored to the unique needs of the project context. Additionally, these elements take into account the interactions and expectations of both project team and stakeholders. Yes, let me just click through them. I will not explain each practice by itself, but what I want to tell you is that there are PRINCE2 project management practices that are essential and must be continuously managed throughout the project lifecycle. These practices are tightly integrated and applied across all PRINCE2 processes. For example, the business case must be updated and validated throughout the project to ensure ongoing alignment with objectives and benefits. So far, so good, and might sound very familiar because this is essentially PRINCE2 project management, so the classical product that we have, right? What happens when we apply Agile with it? What you might end up with is something like this. So here we have a high-level overview of the PRINCE2 Agile processes, including when Agile artifacts are created, updated, and how they relate to the key workshops. It also illustrates how project stages align with delivery iterations. Keeping stages the same length allows iteration ends to align with the stage ends, supporting clear release points and enabling informed stop-and-go decisions. So a minimum of iterations per stage is recommended, at least 2, and the iterations should each be between 2 and 4 weeks long for ideal agile delivery and manageable planning. Most process activities are handled through a few focused collaborative workshops with some recurring to support feedback and frequent releases. In smaller or less agile mature environments, those workshops can be split into shorter sessions as needed. So I know this picture is a lot, but don't worry about it. We will look at the components in a bit. Because this was all theory. Now, what is there that you can actually apply? So we do have a lot of good tools. So in the PRINCE2 Agile book, we have a lot of example artifacts that will help you on your Agile journey. We have the project canvas, we have benefits management approach, and so on and so on. There are a lot, and I cannot talk about all of them because that would be the whole training. So it would be a whole day, but I want to show you some of the interesting ones, starting with the Agilometer. So let's say you are early in your project and you're still trying to find out if Agile works for you, but because it doesn't work in every environment. So you want to assess that. The Agilometer is a tool to do exactly that. So with that, you can assess a project's suitability for Agile delivery. It guides in evaluating the project's Agile sustainability with the 6 key factors being flexibility, collaboration, communication, iterative delivery, environment, and acceptance. With its help, you can identify areas that may require adjustment or support before adapting agile practices. So essentially what you're trying to do is how agile ready is your environment right now? How much agile can you sprinkle in a healthy way, right? So this is information that you need later on for tailoring to your project environment. Okay, let's say the Agile Mentor assessment was good, right? It has shown you that you can continue with Agile and you have an Agile approach on how to tailor it. Now you can start planning your project. In Agile, work packages are often defined as user stories, which we see here on the second item. And we also do that in PRINCE2 Agile. Now, a user story, what is that? Let's have a look at it. So a user story is essentially a product work that is based on user need. So it is phrased as a user, I want something so that I can do something. So it includes detailed product acceptance criteria, business value, and effort estimation. Supporting documents and references are also included to clarify context and expectations. So basically, it's a requirement from the perspective of the user. Now, this might seem a little bit slim from depending on where you're coming from, on how detailed your requirements previously were. So how much content does a good user story actually need? This is established in the definition of ready. How much work do we need to put in the user story before we can work on it or on a work package in general? So your user story is considered ready when it includes all three fields describing the who, what, and why. It has measurable benefit and presents a requirement that does not contain the solution. So you are focusing on solely the problem here, right? The problem space. It should also include measurable acceptance criteria and be clearly understood by the team so they can estimate the effort. And lastly, if you need any additional documentation or something similar, all the information required to make the user story a reality needs to be in the user story. As I said before, agile practices, they can and should be adopted to your agile organization. So there is no one standard definition of ready. The detailed definition of ready is defined collaboratively in one of the workshops, in the project initiation workshop, to be precise. I will explain the workshops a little bit later. But what I'm trying to say is the definition of ready is not the same across all teams, across all projects, across all organizations, but the team managing the project or executing the project also decides on the definition of ready together. So how do you create user stories or identify them? So the process of identifying and organizing user stories is called story mapping. It starts with user personas, so let's say key users, for example, and maps common activities in chronological order. These are then broken into process steps. Sometimes we call it the backbone, forming a type of customer journey. Teams then write and prioritize user stories under each process step. These stories are reviewed and grouped into iterations. And once you've done that for all your users that you have, you can put it all on a release map. A release map clusters user stories into releases with clear priorities and deadlines, typically spanning these 2 to 4 week iterations I mentioned earlier. So the release map organizes user stories across multiple stages and iterations to show how value is delivered over time. It highlights how MVPs and releases are built from prioritized content, grouped logically across users, themes, and delivery goals. The map visually supports planning, alignment, and tracking of progress across iterations and stages. So basically what you do in the release map is you prioritize your user stories. Now you might be thinking, okay, but how do I prioritize? What's the most agile way to prioritize requirements or work packages? One method that we do recommend in the book is the Moscow matrix. The Moscow method provides a structured approach to prioritization in agile projects. It categorizes requirements into 4 levels. So first one being the must-haves. Those are critical and non-negotiable. Then we have the should-haves. Those are important but secondary. Then we have the could-haves, which are desirable but optional. And then we have the won't-haves. So things that are specifically not part of the project but can be deferred for future consideration. So PRINCE2 Agile aligns the Moscow prioritization with tolerance by enforcing zero tolerance for must-haves, ensuring that they are always delivered. Should-have items also have minimal tolerance, while could-have features can be deprioritized to maintain control over cost and time. So the thing we said earlier about how we can be agile while still keeping the constraints of what needs to be delivered and tolerance are represented here. And this structured approach ensures that agile teams focus on high priority deliverables while allowing flexibility for lower priority items. So you have identified your user stories, you have prioritized them. What now? Now you put them in a backlog. In PRINCE2 Agile, we have two kinds of backlogs. We have the project backlog and the product backlog, which are similar but not the same. They're similar in structure at least. So all your user stories go into the backlog. The backlog is, what is it? It's a prioritized list of all requirements, typically written as user stories, with higher priority items being more detailed for near-term development. So the things that you see on the top should have all the details and should be ready as per the definition of ready, while things on the lower half of the product backlog, for example, they can be a little more fuzzy, which also goes in line with what Sean said earlier, right? We need time to do analysis, but we also need to do delivery. So how Agile does it is you do it at the same time. While you deliver the items that are already refined and ready to be worked on, you continue analysis on the items that are to follow soon. So the project backlog on the left-hand side, it replaces the project product description and focuses on epic user stories. Epic user stories, I didn't explain that in too much detail, but those are basically big clusters of user stories, right? So user stories that are not to be implemented within one cycle, within 1 2-week iteration, for example, but they're bigger, which can then be split up into smaller user stories. And the smaller user stories, they go into the product backlog. In PRINCE2 Agile, it contains everything that a regular backlog does, but for one product team. So each product team only has one single source of truth, right? Which is the product backlog. That's the only place they pull work from. And the project backlog is basically the only place that the whole project pulls work from. And those are usually interconnected. So when I say we have epic user stories, big user stories that are then split up into smaller ones, you will find the smaller ones in the product backlogs of the individual teams. And similar to the definition of ready, there is also the definition of done. It is a set of agreed criteria used to determine when a work item or collection of items is complete. In Agile, we don't do anything like almost done. It is either done or not done. And if a story is incomplete by the time of the review, the finished part is marked done and the remainder is returned to the backlog for future prioritization. So the definition of done ensures shared understanding and consistent delivery quality across the team. Again, similar to the definition of ready, this is also highly individual to each team, to each project, to each organization. So it is also negotiated in the same way that the definition of ready is in some of the workshops. Now I've mentioned workshops. Let's have a look at them. When do we apply them? I would like to take you guys through that big picture I've shown you previously, but step by step, and maybe tell you about the key workshops and the key activities that happen at these stages. So let's start with the pre-project phase. We are early in development, so we are basically starting to collect information about the project. Two workshops that we do here are the Project Canvas workshop, which sets the foundation for the project by collaboratively defining user groups, business options, the vision, benefits, risk, scope, costs, and business value. So all these items are defined in the Project Canvas workshop. And usually the output is something like the Project Canvas and objectives and the backlog with epics. So similar to the project backlog that I've shown you just a few minutes ago. It is typically facilitated by the project manager with support from stakeholders such as the project executive, business analysts, and user representatives. Usually after that, we do the starting up workshop, and this builds the foundation by clarifying roles, reviewing lessons, assessing risks, and co-creating the initiation stage plan. So the output here are an updated project brief, logs, and an initiation stage plan. Like the Canvas session, it is collaborative and led by the project manager, but also involving all the key stakeholders. Together, these workshops ensure alignment between strategic goals and practical execution, making the transition into the initiation stage seamless and value-focused. So pre-project done, then let's get into the initiation stage. A workshop that is very important here is the project initiation workshop. It provides a structured starting point for agile delivery, and it brings together the delivery team and stakeholders to establish clarity on the project purpose and align around shared expectations. So in addition to defining working agreements and quality standards, the workshop also lays the groundwork for agile adoption, helping participants understand what changes may be required to align with agile practices and governance. The session ensures everyone is aligned, not only to the what and why of the project, but also on the how they will work together going forward. So this is also why these workshops are usually facilitated by an agile coach or team coach. The project manager and product owners, they usually present, and among the participants are usually the project team, of course, but also the board, developers, testers, business analysts, risk managers, and whoever the project just needs. And you can see here's also where we define the definition of ready and definition of done that I mentioned earlier, and also where we assess the agile readiness based on the Agileometer. Once that is done, we can finally do a project kickoff. Here's just an example agenda on how that might look. But basically, it's quite flexible. But basically, what we're trying to do is activities such as team introductions, establishing team values, skill matrices, and those things we want to do so participants can create an agile culture that promotes openness and self-management. The workshop also focuses on setting up the dashboards for the team, providing transparency and accountability, ensuring alignment with project objectives. By the end, the team should have a shared understanding and a well-defined set of practical tools and a clear path forward for effective project execution, which is then one of our next stages. So similar to Prince2 project management, we call them subsequent stages. So you kind of have multi, there is no one implementation stage, but more like iterations. And in those stages, the team also does workshops that also repeat themselves. So usually one of these 2 to 4 week iterations that I told you about, they start and end with a workshop. They start with the team planning workshop. And in the team planning workshop, we want to prepare for the next iteration by refining the product backlog and clarifying requirements. So we prioritize user stories, we define acceptance criteria, we estimate effort. So we have a realistic and focused iteration plan for the 2 to 4 weeks that I mentioned earlier. The workshop ensures alignment and prioritizes objectives while fostering readiness for value delivery. And the iteration ends with a team retrospective. So at the end of every 2 to 4 week cycle, and by the way, when I say 2 to 4 week cycle, it's not like we decide 2 weeks now and 4 weeks next time. It should be stable, right? But each team decides for itself. That's why we say you can go 2 weeks, you can do 3 weeks, you can do 4 weeks. Decide as a team, as part of the previously mentioned workshops, what works for you, and then try to stick with it. And each iteration ends with a retrospective. In the retrospective, we use some time to reflect, provide a safe space for feedback and learning. So we celebrate the successes, we identify challenges, and we capture actionable lessons to improve for future iterations. Team building activities can also be part, and they just strengthen collaboration and morale, ensuring continual improvement and performance and teamwork. Controlling a stage. Yes. So we also have some workshops where stakeholders should be present. First of all, being the progress review workshop. So in this progress review workshop is also usually at the end of an iteration. We review the accomplishments, deliverables, and risks. So this is where product demos come in. This is where we look at the Agileometer again. To collect feedback and update our plan in relation to that feedback. And similar to the team retrospective, there is also a project retrospective that you can do at the end of the stage. where you can also reflect on the stage itself. Again, it is quite similar. Sometimes you can have other participants in there as well, apart from the delivery team, and just reflect and check if you are still in alignment with the project vision. Congratulations, you are about to finalize product delivery, time to close your project. Similar to this PRINCE2 project management, we also have a project closure workshop here where we do final product demo. We identify actionable lessons for future projects. We update the documentation and we develop a handover plan outlining support responsibilities and operational requirements. It also celebrates success, boosts team morale, and establishes clear guidelines for benefits realization and continual improvement. So yeah, that's one very quick demo on how PRINCE2 Agile could work in your environment.
Thank you, Imran. Wow, that sure has a lot of information, right? And I'm sure you must be really overwhelmed to hear what Imran has shared. But don't worry though, we are here to actually help you through this entire journey of applying Agile into your projects and continuing Agile as part of your BAU. But before we even talk about how to actually start the journey, how we can help you, let's talk about why Agile and PRINCE2 or PRINCE2 Agile actually works. Let's look at Agile beyond project management. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So, because by applying PRINCE2 Agile, we no longer focus primarily on the deliverables of a project in terms of a product, right? A lot of times in project management, we are focused so much on delivering a product. But we do understand, right? Because there is constant changes that's happening in the world, right? There's this VUCA problem. PRINCE2 Agile focuses a lot on product vision and developing a roadmap to deliver on that vision. So the products that's delivered along the way in the project is always linked back to the vision, right? So the product might change over time, but the vision and the goals remains the same. That's why it's important. The second thing about PRINCE2 Agile is we can now actually do our projects through iteration and prioritization. That means instead of just a pure waterfall type of activity, we can always go and relook at the things we do and see what value it brings and understand the other things that impacts the project and reprioritize it. That will lead us back to the whole understanding of achieving the product vision and refining the roadmap as we go along. The third way where PRINCE2 Agile brings a lot of benefit is the ability now to be more customer-centric focus. Rather than deciding what products are good for the customers, whenever the customer changes their focus or their requirements, we are able to support them, right? You and I understand that even though the vision might not change, the vision might be a very long-term type of goal that the customer wants to achieve. We can now actually align by even having the ability to change the product to achieve those goals. And the final benefit of PRINCE2 Agile is collaboration is now more encouraged across the project. Not just the customer and the project manager, but the customer, the project manager, together with the development team, so that we can work together to build or achieve a vision that is more valuable than just creating products. If you look at what is written there is Agile product management is about managing the product lifecycle through iterative planning, feedback, and adaptation, ensuring that each release delivers incremental value while responding to changing user needs and market conditions. And this is actually very important in projects today, right? One question people do ask is, well, what you talk about just now is actually very valuable. Does it only mean that this can only apply into a software project, for example? In fact, a lot of the thinking and the practices and the concepts we talked about that is applied in PRINCE2 Agile right? The agile concepts we apply in PRINCE2 Agile can be also applied to infrastructure projects, not necessarily just solutions and stuff like that, but we can actually apply this to actually enhance the projects we do. Okay, so now I'm going to open some time for some Q&A, right? So I do see some questions coming in already. If we could move to the next slide, so if you have questions, do put up on the Q&A section, or I see some people have already put in the chat, right? So, okay, so I have a question, right? Here's that says, how do I know if PRINCE2 Agile version 2 is right for my organization or project type? Imran, would you like to take that up?
Yes, I would love to. So there is no yes or no answer to this, right? What you can do is you can try to assess how big the need for Agile is. So the things that Sean mentioned in the beginning, how unstable is your environment, right? So remember the VUCAs, right? The four letters. Check if they apply to you and in what capacity. And if you are in an environment where things are changing a lot and you feel like there is a need to be agile, that's already a good indicator. Then the second question is your organization. So the first question is, does your environment need agile? And the second question is, does your organization support agile? And that's where the Agilometer comes into play. So you should do an assessment of your project environment, of your organization, company, whatever it is, stakeholders, depends on what context you are working in, and assess if Agile is applicable here and in what capacity, which also kind of goes into the second question, if you don't mind me taking that as well, Sean.
Sure.
How can we customize PRINCE2 Agile? That's exactly how we do it. So we look at the context, how big is the need for Agile? We look at the environment, let's say groundwork, how much fertile ground is there to support Agile. And then we decide how we tailor our Agile approach to that specific situation. And to go into Stephanie's question is, how do I basically kind of going the opposite direction? And in my hypothesis is we have a small team or startup. You can absolutely apply PRINCE2 Agile there. You can start with the smallest part, which is the project delivery level, if you just want to deliver a project. But if you need overall governance, you can also go with the stage approach. So as is always the case with agile frameworks, be it Scrum or Kanban or XP or whichever, those are not rule books that you need to follow in each step, right? It's for me, this is like a toolbox. Somebody is handing me a toolbox, and I take out the tools that I require to do this particular job. And this can go both ways. You do small scale version for your startup, or you do a big scale version for your enterprise.
Thanks. And I wanted to add to that. In Agile version 1, PRINCE2 Agile version 1, I will always remember this statement that PRINCE2 Agile made. And this is based on the Agilometer that says this, right? It is not a question of can we apply Agile or not. It is in every project we can apply Agile. It's how much Agile we can apply. So by using the Agilometer, we can customize our PRINCE2 Agile application. And this links back to what Imran has said. You can apply it in a small project or large project in a small team, or it's how you apply it. And like Imran said, you can mix and match even the frameworks and the methodology, because those are just toolbox tools. You can actually mix Scrum with Kanban. You can mix it, and whatever that benefits you and your project, you can actually achieve that. Okay, we have another question. How do you ensure team buy-in when introducing structured agility into traditional environments? This is always a very challenging question. Imran, would you like to do this?
Yes. We had a similar question at the last webinar. Yeah, it's an interesting one. We also have a whole chapter on scaling agile in the book, which is exactly that. So I cannot tell you the whole chapter right now. That would be too time consuming, but you can read about all about it in the book. But the short answer is by setting the ground rules together, right? We've seen there are different workshops, right? And in these workshops, you define things, you define definitions of ready and done and so on and so on. This is exactly where you have the team by your side, and you decide with the team what to do, which agile practices to use. Just like Sean just said, right? It's a toolbox. You can do one thing or not too many things. So there are ways to integrate the team into the agile shaping process, if you want to call it that. And by that, you already have a good buy-in. Then my personal recommendation is to phrase things as experiments. So you say something like, okay, let's try to work in iterations for two, three, four iterations, for example, and then see how we feel about it. That way you can get the buy-in by the team being like, okay, this is just an experiment, right? If it goes wrong, then we will not continue doing this. But more often than not, they will see the benefits of it. And then the experiment will become your new standard. Of course, this only works in low stakes environments where you don't have a project also that you need to deliver on time, right? But if maybe there's a low stakes project or something similar where you can experiment with things, I would definitely do it. I would phrase the experiment like you would phrase the project for itself, because we also in the PRINCE2 Agile book, the agile transformation or the scaling of agile, this is also to be considered when planning your project. So what we don't want to do specifically is, okay, do a project, but also, or deliver a project, but also do agile for the very first time, and you have no dips in productivity. So we do consider the change management aspect of agile when planning the project itself.
Hey, thanks, Imran. And that's great. That leads us to our final question for today. And this question is, do we need prior PRINCE2 or Agile certification before adopting the new PRINCE2 Agile version 2? So actually that leads to the next slide, if you don't mind moving that, Imran. Okay, so do you need prior PRINCE2 Agile certification before adopting the new version 2? Not necessary, because within the PRINCE2 Agile version 2 foundations course and practitioners course, the information and the knowledge will be provided to you. So the foundations course will give you a very good idea about the PRINCE2 methodology in terms of project management, and also how Agile fits into PRINCE2. And we do talk about the Agile mindset, some of these practices like the Moscow and things like that. Right. So for the foundations, it's very theoretical to understand the basics and the fundamentals of what makes PRINCE2 Agile work and successful. And then you can follow that up with a more practical course in terms of adopting Agile in certain situations. And that is the practitioner's course, right? This course is delivered by PeopleCert, the owners of PRINCE2 Agile certification, and is delivered through us, MindMagine. So you can always reach out to us to actually ask more questions and allow us to actually help you through this journey, right? So you can get in touch with MindMagine through our website. And if you want to find out more about Agile, you can actually go to PeopleCert's website called peoplecert.org to read more about it and to understand the certification requirements, or also get in touch with MindMagine. I mentioned the word certification here is because PRINCE2 Agile version 2 for both the foundations and practitioners course, it is a certification course where at the end of the course, you will then be provided an exam voucher to then take the exam. And actually, when you actually succeed in the exam, you will be given a certificate. And this is a globally recognized certificate provided by PeopleCert to certify you that you have the knowledge in terms of foundation or practitioner, right? If you do want to reach out to MindMagine, you can actually scan the QR code and reach out to us. We can help you with the course registration and also the exam bookings. Oh, by the way, the exam cannot be taken unless you attend the course, which makes sense because you need to have the knowledge to then apply it, right? Yeah, so we can help you with that, right? And we do run many sessions of PRINCE2 Agile version 2, and we are certified to help you with that, right? If you want to find out more about PRINCE2 Agile, let's move on to the final slide. Um, right. So PeopleCert is providing ongoing support, and you can do this by joining PeopleCert as a member, known as PeopleCert Plus, right? So when you join PeopleCert as a member, and you can do this when you go to PeopleCert today or peoplecert.org today, or you can do this when you have taken the course and when you start preparing for the exam. You can also sign up for it. Yeah, this is a paid membership, and through this paid membership, you would have access to all the white papers pertaining to PRINCE2 Agile, and where this is applied, giving you examples of different industries that this is applied. You can join their community forum to ask further questions or to actually contribute to discussions. You have previews to new information that is provided by PeopleCert. You have access to mock exam papers and also ability to even retake certain exams. And of course, by also subscribing to PeopleCert Plus, that will actually uh, give you the ability to also have information and recognition for your career development. Right. One of the things that they have done is the collection of CPD points, continuous, what I call that, education, personal development points that you can then grow your career. Right. So if you have any more questions, feel free to drop the questions to us by going to the MindMagine website or dropping us an email, right? And we will be more than happy to answer those questions for you. Unfortunately, we only have 1 hour, and I know that we have so much to cover, and I'm so excited to want to tell you more about this, but time is always a challenge. So I do hope that we will hear back from all of you again, those who have attended. Feel free to reach out to us so that we can help you through this journey. Before we go, I want to say a big thank you once again to Imran Ahmad from PeopleCert, who brought us through a very brief overview of what PRINCE2 Agile is, and really appreciate that he could join us today. Right? Thank you so much. And again, my name is Sean. I'm with MindMagine, and I'm so happy that you could join us today. And I hope to reach out to you in future webinars and future courses. Take care, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.